Alright, what is gonna be the new story for today? We are not gonna be able to do Memoirs of the Lambda Delta yet. What does it say? Known as the Witch of Certainty? Well, the stream of humans wanting their desires granted by her is certainly endless. For sure. Okay, notes from a certain chef. Oh god. I wonder, is this like a continuation of the last story? Are we gonna explore the feelings that Goda has for Jessica even more? Oh god. Goda is employed as sole chef of Rokkenjima. In this notebook, he recounts the ghost stories of the Ushirimiya family mansion. Okay, well, I guess we're gonna get more of that sort of stuff. Some spooky mansion ghost stories with Goda. I am writing things down so that I can forget them. I hope that only I have to know about any of this. Okay. This is weird. Like the screen is acting a little bit weird. Hopefully it's not gonna pick up on OBS, I think. Okay. Since they're known as the 7 Izu Islands, I originally believed that the Izu archipelago actually does consist of 7 islands, and nothing more than that. At first, I was told that Rokkenjima was a rather small island. However, my poor imagination drew me a picture of a tiny island with a single palm tree on it when I heard that. Compared to that, Rokkenjima was actually quite vast. The coastline of the island was a little over 10 kilometers, or 6 miles. The overall length of the island would be almost 3 kilometers, 2 miles. On a map, it will certainly look small, but when you take into account that it's a private island, with only the mansion of the Ushirimiya family built there, its vastness becomes something unimaginable. Oh man, are we actually beginning this with you know, the beginnings of Goda and how he got to the mansion as well? That's nice. I often remember how the presence of the imposing mansion on the other side of the beautiful rose garden greatly surprised me when I first arrived here. Not even in my wildest dreams could I imagine that my life as a cook would lead me to a mansion of billionaires. That was like a manga or a fairy tale. In the first place, I was an unlucky person. I worked at a restaurant in a well-known hotel, and it was a wonderful job full of both pride and tension. It was a place where wonderfully talented cooks competed with their skills. The bonds between us were even stronger than our pride or any tradition. But everything collapsed when the head chef, who united everyone with his strong charisma, suddenly retired due to illness. For us cooks, our skills and pride mean everything, and the only people we can respect are cooks that surpass us. And that's why, under this head chef's control, we all performed our work as one, no matter how impatient, inflexible, or young we were. So perhaps this was an inevitable consequence of the head chef suddenly retiring. We had split into several factions. We expected the most popular person in the kitchen to become the next head chef. He was highly valued for his achievements, skills, and leadership over the enthusiastic juniors. However, he was also strong-willed. He didn't get along very well with the hotel management. The management needed a cook who would show acceptable results within suitable budgets and deadlines, not someone who would produce an amazing result at the cost of ignoring those. This clash of priorities became a problem. The candidate that the management ended up choosing wasn't a mob opportunist. He was more interested in showing his subservience to the management than actually making food. Instead of improving his cooking skills, he was only spending time on figuring out how to get a promotion. In the end, this man became the head chef. The person all of us wanted to see in that position instead ended up as his assistant. We couldn't accept this result, but we decided to keep working under these conditions for a while to see how things turn out. However, the difference between him and his predecessor was immediately obvious, which caused the cooks to explode in frustration. Many did not approve of his method that ignored their pride as cooks, and of course, that included me. Before long, assistants and sympathizers both decided to force the management to negotiate by slapping them with their resignation letters. At this point, it didn't seem like we had any other choice. Back there, I was the youngest, but I still wouldn't lose to anyone, neither in skill nor in pride. Thinking back on it, I think I didn't quite grasp the fact that I was not only a cook, but also an employee at the hotel. At first, the assistants weren't interested in such careless methods. Later, I understood. The young people like me were very enthusiastic about this chance at a revolt against the new head chef. But the end result was not what we expected. The management talked some of the assistants out of quitting, and they didn't join in our revolt. After that, the hotel decided to clear the kitchen of the remaining dissidents. They talked the most useful and skillful people out of resigning, and purposely overlooked the attempt at a revolt. I didn't understand how they could do such a thing to us, but for the hotel, this was the obvious decision to make. We, the young ones, had been insulting our colleagues who decided not to participate. We called the assistants traitors, started planning a counterattack against them, but a cook is a cook because he cooks. Otherwise, he cannot make a living. Starting with the calmer ones, one by one, they quietly backed out from the uproar and disappeared after getting another job. Only then did I realize just how inexperienced I was. The title of a former cook in a prestigious restaurant can be both a weapon and a burden. Finding a new job wasn't easy. I tried to find employment at restaurants and hotels with the same level, but all participants of this industry have strong horizontal bonds. Details of all the trouble we caused were already well known, and there were even some circulating letters that stated that if they hired everyone who was involved, their relations would have to be reconsidered. There was nothing indicating that I could call myself a cook ever again. One day, suddenly, I got a call from a young man who sympathized with me and resigned at the same time I did. He told me that a certain multimillionaire was looking for a live-in cook. Live-in cook? The pay wasn't bad at all, but I got the impression that the working conditions would be rather severe. The young told me this to return a past favor. From what I understood, they were looking for a full-time and very skillful cook. However, very skillful cooks would usually already have a job that wouldn't leave them any free time. And they would also have bonds of gratitude with their workplace, which means they'd never thoughtlessly resign just because pay somewhere else was better. In other words, it was a perfect job offer for someone like myself. Working as a full-time cook on a remote island. It didn't sound bad. Besides, my financial situation didn't allow me to be picky anymore. Furthermore, such a high status would satisfy my youthful pride. And thus we are here. Thus, I applied as a cook to the Ushirimiya family. Then more were gathered there besides me. If I recall correctly, I was the oldest person there. I thought I was still young, and being among a bunch of people younger than myself was awkward. But the young ones had a lot of inspiration. If they had more experience, they would probably become wonderful cooks. In terms of experience, I really had the upper hand here. Also, I was highly valued for my skills when serving customers, which I learned with the previous head chef. The difference between a cook that never leaves the kitchen and a cook that brings food out to VIPs and even chats with them is obvious. That's why I felt that I would get this job. There was still a chance that they would pick someone young because habits from other workplaces will cause trouble, or something like that. In the end, it was really up to luck. Later, Madame Nazi told me she gave the final word that I'll get the job, and I could see a smile on her face. Hooray! And thus, I became the full-time cook who would serve the Ushirimiya family. For the duration of the contract, I could not offer my food to anyone except this family, which helped stimulate my pride even more. Nobody will see my cooking except the Ushirimiya family. Well, not bad. And thus started my second life at the Rokkenjima mansion. Alrighty then. Well, my troubles as a cook and... Oh wait, I forgot this. The title of and the description said something about ghost stories. I thought that we're just gonna get only this. Well, my troubles as a cook and a servant would be very tedious to read and uninteresting to keep writing about. It'll be too boring. That's why I decided to write down interesting things about my working life in Rokkenjima. And the most interesting thing is, no doubt, the legend of Beatrice, the Golden Witchy. All over Nippon, wherever you are, there are stories about curses and such. Of course, the hotel I used to work at also had plenty of these. Wait, I feel like I remembered this particular detail. Maybe Goda talked about this at some point as well. About his own hotel having its own stories. Actually, hold on a second. Wasn't it at this point that I remember talking about this as well? And I was mentioning, man, imagine other witches out there having their own kind of Rokkenjima. Maybe at this hotel that Goda worked at, there were curse stories or ghost stories about some particular witch or something like that. A completely different one. I feel like I remember talking about this at some point. So the first time I heard the story at my new job, I smiled bitterly and thought, oh, not this again. But this story was different from the others. Most such horror stories in Japan focus on ghosts or yokai. This legend of Beatrice, the Golden Witch, was different enough from that to make me uncomfortable. However, this mention of the Rokkenjima family gives you a sensation of anachronism. So, even if a ghost like Oiwa-san, with her head wrapped in a triangular bandage, were to come out, you'll probably only snigger at her instead. Perhaps ghost stories do suit a mention like this one. They say that the lady from the portrait in the reception hall wonders about the mansion every night. They say that this lady rules the mansion at night. That if you don't respect her, you will meet a cruel, cruel fate, and so on. I've heard that a servant once spoke ill of Lady Beatrice, and that this very same servant ended up retiring soon after with a serious injury, including falling off the stairs as well. Which I also joked about before, that maybe Beatrice, given how much of a prankster she is, she puts like a banana peel or just pushes the servant down the stairs. In other words, anything bad that happens to this island may get attributed to the curse of Lady Beatrice. Further expanding on that, it means that whenever something bad happens, the one who gets the blame is the person who doesn't respect her. I quickly figured that out and made sure to act like I respected Beatrice deeply. But in my heart, I sneered at her, since there was no way something so absurd existed. This ghost story of Beatrice was blindly accepted by the senior servants. Respect her or you will be cursed. Thanks to phrases like that, it felt like a person might die in a natural death if they don't respect the witch. There is a strong aura warning us not to speak ill of Lady Beatrice, and not to take her lightly. Even chatting about her over the tea wasn't something we ever did. Well, as strange as it may be... Ooh? Well, as strange as it may be, if you live among people like this for a long time, you start to think like them. I started to become afraid that one day, during my usual night patrol, I might pass by in front of that huge portrait, and her eyes would glare at me. Even so, I was above these simple war stories. Or so I thought. The night rounds are difficult since we have to check if all the doors and windows are closed inside of this huge mansion. On the other hand, the family was already asleep, and I could relax somewhat as a servant. One night, when I was passing by the reception hall, I saw a silhouette disappearing towards the grand staircase. I heard footsteps too. Since I had thought that Master and Madame were already sleeping, and I was kind of slacking around, I got increasingly flustered and tense. That floating shadow left the impression of a female figure. Among the servants, there is no one with a silhouette like that, so I ultimately thought it was Madame or my lady. This actually reminds me of a Murdoch Mysteries episode. It was about a ghost-like entity in a mansion, and somebody saw that ghost. Murdoch was there too. I don't remember the details of that though. It seemed like the silhouette episode was wearing a negligee. Negligee? Why is that? However, when I think carefully, that was quite a strange story. Madame is an extremely serious person and always said that the corridors inside the mansion were the same as public roads. In other words, she meant that people shouldn't walk around the corridors in informal clothing, such as PJs. Beatrice in her PJs? Oh man. Actually, even when the people of the ship... I wonder what kind of PJs she would be wearing. Even when the people of the Ushirimiya family were at home, they were always using formal garments. Were they pink PJs? At home, one should relax and wear more comfortable clothes. But such logic didn't apply to this family. I actually have seen Madame chewing my lady out for having her clothes out of shape. So, after thinking carefully, I concluded that no such silhouettes were supposed to exist in this mansion. The more I think about it, the less likely it seems that it was a person from the mansion. Then, who on earth did I see? Was it really Lady Beatrice? In PJs? Saw the silhouette in the reception hall. In other words, in front of her portrait. After some time passed, I felt even more scared than the moment I saw this silhouette.
Kannon-san, 今はお暇ですか?
道具を洗って片付けたら大階段の掃除をするつもりですが、何か?
He is a servant who used the alias of Kannon, and who is allowed to wear the one-winged eagle. From the very start, I thought I wouldn't be able to get along well with him, and now I didn't even want to try anymore. However, that moment was so unusual that I wanted to discuss it with him. He's been serving the Ushimiya family longer than I have, and he knows the details about the horror story, Beatrice. Actually, hold on a second. I think it was that Kannon worked here for 3 years and Goda was for like 2 years, I think. Probably like that, if I remember correctly. Even so, I can't help talking to him as if I'm his superior. To sum it up, I didn't like talking to him very much. But for now, I just wanted to talk to someone about my experience. I don't care what he says to me. I won't be able to calm down until I talk to someone. I see. Now I understand the feelings of the barber who couldn't help but shout that the king has donkey ears.
あれはベアトリーチェ様だったんでしょうかね。カノンさんには似たような経験は？
He remained silent and stared at me motionlessly, as if evaluating me. It was as though he was a cat pondering about whether to stay or to run away. When I started to think he was just ignoring me, Kannon answered.
僕は深夜勤の見回りの時、黄金の蝶を見たことがあります。
黄金の蝶。ベアトリーチェ様が現れる時に先触れとして飛ぶとかいう。
That was what I heard. They say that butterflies that shine of gold are an omen of Lady Beatrice's appearance. And that story was very similar to the will o' the wisps that appear before a ghost shows up. But unlike the will o' the wisps, golden butterflies don't have an ominous image associated with them. I would actually want to see such a beautiful thing at least once, if it really exists. However, if I happen to meet them during a night round all alone, I'm sure they look really ominous.
古い使用人たちの間では、黄金の蝶はベアトリーチェ様の現れる先触れであり。
Don't mess with Beatrice when she is in the kitchen. You know, she can get really monstrous. That, and I do have to apologize, Goda, that sometimes you're gonna have to clean the kitchen with all the stuff that has been thrown from the kitchen, from the fridge. I'm sure that at some points it got super messy.
そしてその後を追えば、ベアトリーチェ様に出会えるだろうと言われていますが、その後を追ってはならないとも言われています。
だからカノンさんは後を追わなかった。
はい、それはベアトリーチェ様に対し不敬に当たりますので。
ああ、その後を追った使用人が確か大怪我をして辞めたんでしたっけ？
そう聞いています。ベアトリーチェ様は敬う者には寛大ですが、それを書く者には残酷だそうですので。
Kanon's mood hinted that even talking so much about Lady Beatrice was a really bad idea. It was beyond his usual dislike toward me.
貴重な時間を失礼しましたね。多分あれは私の見間違いだったのでしょう。多分奥様かお嬢様が寝巻き姿で歩かれたのを見て勘違いしてしまったのでしょう。
I can imagine Goda's mind right now. The thought of my lady wearing a pajama. No, don't think about that. Don't think about that. Stop thinking about Jessica. The thought of Madame wearing pajamas. Don't think of that. Don't think of your Madame in PJs, goddammit. Otherwise, you're gonna get a clubbing from crowds.
奥様やお嬢様が そのような姿で廊下に出られることは断じてありません。
しかし私は姿を見ました。白いネグリジェを着た女性のようなイメージだった。
Okay, I have to check. What is a negligee? This is the first time that I'm hearing such a word. Oh. Oh. Oh my. Oh my. We got some spicy... It is a form of see-through clothing for women. Beatrice in such a thing? Ooh. That's spicy.
奥様とお嬢様の寝巻きにそのようなものは聞いていません。
It's possible that this was the answer I actually wanted to hear. That female silhouette was neither Madame nor my lady. Could he really have been Lady Beatrice? I don't understand. I don't want to acknowledge the existence of witches just because of this. I need to figure out whose shadow it was. Perhaps this intention of mine was reflected on my face, because Kannon noticed it and warned me.
ゴーダさん、悪いことは言いません。ベアトリーチェ様を冒涜するような行為は慎まれた方が身のためかと思います。
まさかまさか、そんなつもりはありませんよ。
僕も以前ベアトリーチェ様の存在を疑ったことがあります。
カノンさんが？
はい、今ゴーダさんが持っている感情と同じです。古い使用人たちが敬え敬えと繰り返す謎の魔女の存在に疑問を感じたことがあります。もしその正体があるならば暴いてやろうとさえ。
That was unexpected. I was thinking that Kannon believed in Lady Beatrice blindly, but now he's telling me that he had doubts about her existence in the past. I was even more worried.
そのカノンさんがなぜ信じることに？
魔女にしかできない奇跡を見せられたからです。いえ、奇跡じゃない。あれは警告でした。その存在を疑い冒涜する僕にベアトリーチェ様が警告されたのです。
その話聞いてもいいですか？
He went silent once again. However, I wanted to do something about the haze in my heart, so I didn't give up. I kept insisting, and he told me about the story of how he started to believe in the witch. In short, it went like this. One day, he was cleaning the gardening storehouse. He forgot to put the key of the storehouse back into the key box in the servant's room, and went to bed with it in his pocket. He can only open and close the storehouse with this one single key. There's no spare, and master keys don't work with this lock. In other words, nobody should have been able to enter the storehouse that night. Next morning, in order to do the maintenance in the rose garden, he opened the gardening storehouse to get the tools, and he was completely shocked. This thoroughly cleaned interior of the gardening storehouse was transformed into an utter mess. And there was an eerie drawing on the floor of something that looked like a magic circle in blood-like red paint.
そんなバカなことが。カノンさんが鍵をずっと持っていたなら、園芸倉庫は密室ではありませんか。誰にも倉庫内をめちゃくちゃにして、そんなおかしな図形を描けたわけもない。
僕も当時は信じられませんでした。シャッターを開き、まるで竜巻が通り過ぎた後のような倉庫内がそこにあり、不気味な魔法陣が描かれていた時の衝撃は 今も忘れられません。
確かに、そんなことがあったら薄気味悪くて仕方ない。しかし、こうは考えられませんか？それが、あなたを驚かすための手の込んだいたずらだという可能性も。
いたずら？
ええ、そうです。
A prank?
あなたはお若い。他の使用人たちにからかわれて、そういういたずらをされたのでは？
でも、鍵は僕が持っていた。あの晩に限ってだけは、誰も倉庫に入れたわけもない。
カノンさんがご存じないだけで、もう一つスペアキーがあるということもあるんじゃないですか？
Or I guess from Goda's perspective, he would think that someone came to Kanon's room and took your key. But the question is, would they know that the key is in Kanon's possession? Interesting question.
いいえ、ないはずです。
それを言い切れますか？カノンさんはスペアキーはないと信じてる。しかし、ないは証明できない。実はカノンさんが知らないだけで、スペアキーは存在するんじゃないでしょうか。そう考えれば、その不可解な密室事件は、誰かのいたずらで説明できますよ。
Yeah, the devil's proof. I felt like I was the greatest detective to ever live. Oh. Is this like Goda's secret detective story? Oh my. Kannon didn't object against my explanation. My mood improved, and I ended up criticizing Lady Beatrice. Witches don't exist. Surely it was a misunderstanding. All the incomprehensible incidents that the witch is allegedly responsible for could be explained with simple tricks or coincidences. I'll never forget the wide-eyed expression Kannon showed me at that moment. It was as if he said, "You'll never get away unharmed after saying such dreadful things." Not that he said it like that, but, you know, it was as though he was frightened by my stupidity. A face like that. That uncanny expression of his got stuck in my heart as a thorn. I froze, and remained like that for a while. And then, one day, when I was starting to forget the pain of that thorn, it was a rare day when Master K... You know, I just realized something. It is a weird thing, but... This is something that I have to think about when it comes to how these short stories are included in the main story. If I can consider this like something that I can use to analyze characters, as I said, or I can just consider. It's so difficult to even explain this, but nonetheless, this isn't the point that I was trying to make. Like the point is, imagine if Beatrice got the idea of using devil's proof in her murder mysteries, and we got the idea of using devil's proof in the game boards and such because of Goda right over here. This is the moment that the concept of devil's proof was born in Beatrice's mind. My god. Go Goda. It was a rare day when Master Kinzo was out. Master Kraus, Madame and my lady were also absent because of a trip, meaning the whole Shinomiya family was gone from the island. Because of that, the shift chart had only a few people assigned. So that day, only Genji and I were on duty. They often say that when the cat's away, the mice will play. It really was a very pleasant day. Genji never left the servant room and was busy with paperwork. So I was secretly but carefully strolling through the rose garden with a beer can and a persimmon. It was really pleasant, wonderful day, and I wish that I could have a day like this at least once a week. The only thing I had to do was cook for myself and Genji, which was a piece of cake. The cooking wasn't too troublesome, so having such a rare opportunity, I cleaned the kitchen more diligently than usual, and was rewarded with a reflection of my white smile in a sparkling kitchen sink. Lovely. Genji was in charge of patrolling, so when I was finished with my work, I returned to the servant's room and, to get rid of the daily fatigue, I took a shower. Not that I was particularly tired after just having a drink in a rose garden. Just for funsies. Suddenly, the phone rang. I thought that calling at this hour meant it was something urgent. But Genji never calls in the middle of the night, even if something urgent happens. He'd rather avoid a phone call and go up to knock on the door of the person he had business with. I wonder what must have happened for Genji. Of all people to call him. In a rush, I covered myself with a bath towel and picked up the phone. Did something happen? His answer to that was really simple. It was strange for Genji's voice to sound so nervous. However, the tone of his voice made me realize that something very strange must have happened. But what on earth could have happened? By the way, the kitchen, to me, was my fortress. If that whatever happened to her was due to my ineptitude, I would be held responsible. But how could I, of all people, mess something up in the kitchen? Anyway, I changed clothes once again and rushed to the kitchen. And then I'll probably never forget what I saw there.
これはどういうことですか？
手伝ってほしい。私一人では手に負えない。
Looking at this bizarre situation, I was surprised at how Genji-san's surprise was only expressed in the nervousness of his voice. Either way, my beloved kitchen, that had tidied up so well, it should have been in perfect condition. So why is it like this? On the counter, the pots and bowls that I polished until they shined were piled up like children's building blocks. And around it, the cookware, such as the ladles, were lined up radially. The impression it gave off at first could be described like that of a totem pole built out of cookware. Moreover, they were surrounded by thick, blood-like red paint, in the shape of an eerie magical circle. Of course, shivers went up my spine. And then, in my mind, the thorn from that time was revived. I was sure of it. This was the same thing that Kannon had experienced in the gardening storehouse.
Goda, こんなものを他の使用人たちに見せるわけにはいかない。今夜中に急いで片付けよう。
そうですね。片付けましょう。誰がこんなことを。
What a strange story. Today, only Genji and I were on Rokkenjima. I will never do such an absurd thing. So this automatically makes Genji the culprit. But would he ever do something like this? Wonder what he gained from such a prank. Does he just want to harass me? But Genji is cleaning too. Why would he make a mess and clean it on his own? Would he do something so pointless just to scare me? That's impossible. If I were to find the culprit for this grotesque prank with a magic circle, I can only think of the golden witch Beatrice.
Genji-san はいつこれに気づいたんですか?
The lengths that these people would go.
見回りが終わって使用人室に戻ろうとしたら、厨房の扉が開けっぱなしになっているのに気づいてな。覗いたらこのざまだった。
まさか泥棒?
Oh? A burglar? someone who's hiding on the mansion without the family being aware of said culprit? Someone who went to the kitchen, like inside the fridge, and stole all the cheese? Oh, the cheese tax! The cheese tax!
戸締まりは完全だった。
Yeah. Maybe I should have included that in like the fall of the Great Detective video. Maybe I will in the future whenever I will continue the case. Like, go with the cheese tax fury.
それにこのロッケン島に泥棒などわざわざ来るわけもない。
じゃあ誰がこんなことを。
Hold on a second. Hold on. The mansion is perfectly locked. There's no way a burglar would go through the trouble of coming to Rokkenjima. Yeah, it kinda makes you wonder, eh?
それを詮索する必要はない。ゴーダはとにかく鍋を片付けるように。私はこれを消す。とにかくこの落書きを他の者の目に触れさせるわけにはいかない。
私カノンさんに聞いたんですが、前にも園芸倉庫でこんなことがあったとか。こういうことはよくあるんですか？
Perhaps I shouldn't have asked. Even though his mouth and lips were never stopped moving, Genji turned around and raised his head with a grim face.
カノンめ、あれほど口外してはならないと言ったのに。
すみません。彼のことは叱らないでください。私が無理に聞き出したんです。それより教えてください。こういうことは前にもよくあったんですか？
時にな。よくあるいたずらだ。
いたずらって一体誰が？だって今日は私と源氏さんしかいないんですよ。他に誰がいると言うんです？もちろん私じゃない。じゃあ源氏さんがこれを？そんなわけだってあるはずがない。じゃあこれはどういうことなんです？誰の仕業なんです？
それを無理に考えようとしてはならない。ただ黙って片付けるのだ。決して誰にも口外してはならないぞ。親方様はもちろん、旦那様にも奥様にも、もちろんお嬢様にもだ。カノンは後で罰しておく。
二度と聞きませんから、教えてください。
Being punished by Ronoe.
じゃあ源氏さんはこれをベアトリーチェの仕業だというのですか？
その名をむやみに口にするな。
なぜです？
その名をむやみに、そして呼びつけにする使用人はなぜか長く持たないからだ。ゴーダの料理の腕は特に奥様が高く評価されている。お前にやめられては困る。
That sounded a little threatening. At the same time, it seemed like he was basically admitting to this being the fault of Lady Beatrice. These strange cases, perhaps, were not limited by what happened in the gardening storehouse. And, without any doubt, whenever this happens, it's covered up before the family can notice it. Okay, so, it is something that I felt throughout the story as well. A lot of the people, of course, know about Beatrice and believe in her. The servants and, the usual people that would believe in this. Goda, it feels like if we're thinking about Yasu and Genji and Kumasawa trying to convince somebody that Beatrice exists and to believe in her, they kind of took it for a different spin with Goda. They didn't want to make Goda believe in Beatrice in the sense of respecting Beatrice and making him say the same things. No, they wanted to make him scared of Beatrice, to not ask much about her. Sort of like keep him afraid of Beatrice in that sense, to not ask questions, instead of making him believe and respect Beatrice and such. It's interesting. I mean, that's how I view it.
二度と迂闊には口にしませんから教えてください。
I mean, there is like a pattern right over here. Usually those you see believing Beatrice like wholeheartedly, the way we saw in like the first episode, for example, when Balor was in the kitchen with the servants and Maria and such. Goda is not part of that group. So, I mean, have you ever thought of Goda as an accomplice in like any of the episodes? Not really. when I think about it, I never really put Goda in that accomplice type list. It's more the other servants, which is interesting. Huh.
これはベアトリーチェ様の仕業なのですか？
私はそうだと思っている。過去の例ではより不可解な事件もあった。明らかに人間には不可能な形で。
それはどのような？
夜回りをしていた若い使用人が黄金の蝶を見てその後を追った。
Oh.
戸締まりがされた勝手口に行き着き見失い断念した。
確か黄金の蝶を見ても後を追ってはならないということになってましたね。
When you see a golden butterfly, you're not supposed to go after it.
そして後ろを振り返った時、そこの壁にはこれと同じような魔法陣が壁いっぱいに描かれていたのだ。
じゃあその若い使用人が黄金の蝶を追って諦めて振り返ったらもうそこに描かれていたというのですか？壁に背を向けていたわずか数秒の間に。
見過ごすような壁ではなかった。彼女は壁に最初何も描かれていなかったと強く証言している。そして勝手口が施錠されているのを確認し引き返そうと振り返ったわずか数秒の間だったそうだ。
まさかご冗談を。そんなのその使用人たちの冗談では。
Oh, but it couldn't have been Goda. How can you even explain it?
連絡を受けて私もそれを消すのを手伝った。複雑な文様だった。わずか数秒で描けるものでは断じてない。そして見過ごすことも断じてないだろう。
Man, Beatrice can paint this stuff like way fast. Imagine if she started to become an artist. Like, imagine Beatrice just being on the computer or on the laptop with a tablet, with a drawing tablet. She would do it like way fast, just like that.
その使用人はその直後に高熱を出し、入院して退職した。
Like all the art that she would do, it would just be of herself, obviously.
その後は郷里に帰ったらしい。連絡もつかない。
そんなバカなことが。いや、それすらも高度ないたずらかもしれない。むしろその若い使用人がいたずらの犯人で、そういうことにしてみんなをからかったとか。
なるほど。そういう見方もできるかもしれないな。もうおしゃべりはこれまでにしよう。だが私は絶対に人間では不可能なことを 自らの身をもって体験している。
それは一体。
Genji stopped talking there. After a long pause, he chose to ignore me completely and resumed cleaning. Genji, who was a very pragmatic person and very serious about his work, only kept silence when it came to Lady Beatrice. His silence told me that she exists better than a million words could. We finished the cleaning. Even if we told someone that a weird totem pole and magic circle were in the kitchen, nobody would ever believe it. Genji warned me once again not to speak of it to anyone. I tried to forcibly erase the events of that night from my mind with strong alcohol. A lot of time has passed, and I chose to conclude that it was a joke from someone with awful taste. But even nowadays, I get frightened sometimes. The first thing every morning for me is to go to the kitchen to make breakfast. At those times, I get frightened that my cookware would end up piled up in a strange manner again. It's better if I forget about it. I want to help myself forget by writing it down here. At any rate, I hope I will never have to go through something like this again. Toshiroji. Too bad. It's going to happen again.